Welcome to HR Voices. A podcast for independent HR and people professionals and the businesses they support. HR Voices is brought to you by the expert team at HR Independence Limited. We hope you enjoy.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the HR Voices podcast. I am your host, Mary Asante. Now today's episode is a little bit different. Over the past few weeks, I've been speaking to a lot of HR consultants, both within the independent community and beyond, and I've noticed a pattern. The same questions keep coming up. There are questions about winning work, questions about pricing, questions about confidence, and questions about how to actually run a sustainable consultancy business. So I thought I'd bring those together and share some reflections, not just answers, but what I'm seeing across the HR community right now. So the first one I'll be looking at, or we'll be reflecting on, is winning work and visibility. One of the biggest questions I hear is, how do I get more consistent clients? And closely linked to that one is, why isn't LinkedIn working for me? Now, what I'm seeing across the HRI community is that many consultants are showing up, but not always intentionally. They are posting occasionally, they are connecting sporadically, but they are not necessarily building relationships. And that's the difference. Winning work isn't just about visibility, it's about connection and consistency. For example, I spoke to a consultant recently who said, I'm posting, but I'm not getting any inquiries. And when we unpacked it, the issue wasn't effort, it was clarity. They weren't clear on who they were speaking to, what problem they were solving, or what action they wanted people to take. So their content was being seen, but not converting. So it's worth asking yourself, are you just visible, or are you intentional? Because ultimately, people don't just buy from posts. They buy from people they know and trust. So in showing up in our quest for visibility and being seen, it is important that we're very clear on our purpose. What are we showing up for? How are we showing up? Are we clear on whom we want to show up to? And are we clear on how we want them to engage with us and on our calls to actions? So these are very important when we are thinking about our brand, our business, how we show up, where we show up, and also, more importantly, consistency. I think I've spoken to so many people about it's not necessarily the fact that you're posting 2-3 times a day, or every day, or every other day, or every week, or even occasionally every month or every other month. I mean, that might be too long, but What is important is the consistency. If you post every week, it may be important that you show up every week and you post every week. If you post every day, it may be necessary that you post every day. So when we're thinking about visibility, it's important to think about that. The next theme, which comes up again all the time almost, when I'm talking to HR community and HR independents, is around pricing and retainers. This is a major thing, and questions like, am I charging enough? Should I be offering retainers? How do I move from hourly work? How do I move from effectively time and materials, selling my time? Now, this is often where mindset comes into play. Many HR consultants come from employed roles where pricing isn't where they had, isn't something that they had to think about in this way. But as a consultant, you shouldn't be selling time. You are delivering value, expertise, and outcomes. And what I'm seeing is that many consultants undervalue what they bring. They price based on time, comparison, or confidence level, rather than impact, risk reduction, and business outcomes. When it comes to retainers, they can be incredibly powerful. Not just the recurring income aspects of it, that retainers are amazing, not just for our bottom line, but for building long-term relationships. These relationships can be incredibly powerful in establishing trusting relationships with our clients. But they only work when expectations are clear, boundaries are in place, and both sides understand the value. Because a poorly structured retainer can quickly turn into always available or always reactive. Whereas a well-structured retainer becomes strategic, proactive, and partnership-based. So, when you're thinking about your retainers, think about how clearly you can structure them with your clients so that it can have a lasting impact and help you become the trusted person, the trusted partner that your client think about when they have issues that you can help them resolve. The third theme is confidence and positioning. Another question I hear often, am I too niche? Or how do I stand out? Or more often, am I struggling because I'm a generalist and offering so many services? And my answer usually is this: trying to appeal to everyone is one of the fastest ways to blend in. What I'm seeing across the community is hesitation in narrowing down because it feels risky. And let's face it, a lot of HR consultants start off as generalists. And more often than not, when you're approached by a client with a piece of work, it's easier to say yes to them than to say, actually, this is not my area of focus, or this is not my area of expertise. And so if you really need to get your income up, then it even becomes harder to say no to work that you probably would rather not do. However, in reality, clarity creates confidence. It helps us in our positioning ourselves as the go-to consultant when our clients need help. It helps us position ourselves as experts when people have issues that we can help them to solve. And it helps us to position ourselves as people who bring real value and align strategically with our clients and their goals. For example, if you say, I'm an HR consultant, that's broad. And a lot of us, I think, when we meet people, whether it's networking or whether we are marketing ourselves on social media, on our websites, Facebook pages, or wherever we hang out, or however we appeal to our clients, that is the very first thing we do or say. I'm an HR consultant. What does that actually mean to the people that we are talking to our potential clients, to the people who might be seeking out our services? However, if you say, I support scaling SMEs to build people strategies that reduce risk and improve retention, that's specific and that's clear. But to make it more memorable, maybe we can tailor it even more so that it's not full of jargons, but actually based in clear language that our potential targets and our potential clients may understand. For example, I support scaling SMEs to get the best out of their people. Again, how do we do that? Being able to be very clear in our messaging can help incredibly. The fourth theme is delivery and boundaries. A really important case. Now, if you think about retainers, for example, where a client might be paying you, it's very important that they understand what they are paying you for, and that you are both very clear, both parties are very clear on the boundaries, so that you don't get operation scope creep, so that your scope gets bigger and wider, or expectations become too blurry, and it makes the relationship quite awkward more often than not. But having a clear boundary helps manage your client's expectations, and it helps strengthen relationships long term. Many consultants, however, find themselves becoming always available, always responding, and firefighting. And over time, that becomes exhausting. What I'm seeing is that often comes down the boundaries. Now, if you're not very clear on your boundaries, if you're not very clear on what the scope of your engagement, the rules of your engagements are, it really can lead to unclear structures, and it can really break down the relationship between you and your clients. For example, as I said earlier, whether unclear scope, where you are quite unclear of when you are available, or unclear in your communications between yourselves and your clients. So, how do you establish boundaries and make sure that you have very clear scope in terms of what your delivery is? You can do this at the very beginning of establishing your relationship with your clients. You can do this when you have review meetings with your clients or through ongoing discussions with your clients. You need to be very clear on what's included. You need to be clear on how you work and how you communicate with your clients, because boundaries are not just about being difficult, but they are about being professional and sustainable. Now, one of the other things that also comes up that may be worth considering is also, I've got too much work going on, but I'm not sure what or how to handle it. That then ventures into the business module space, where you start to consider whether you bring people in as employees, as in when you're growing, whether you grow your team to be able to meet your demand, or whether you bring people on as associates that you can engage when you're extremely busy or when you've got enough work to warrant you bringing an associate on. Now, each of those have their benefits or key advantages. When you have an employee on board, you do have overheads, ongoing overheads in terms of whether you've got enough work for the employee or not. However, if you do use associates, when you engage with them during periods that you are busy or you've got enough work for them to do, and during your quieter moments when you are not as busy, there isn't that ongoing commitment between the two of you, so that there's no expectation that you give that ongoing work. So it may be very useful to consider the nature of work, the nature of the excess workload that you have, and whether it's an ongoing thing for a foreseeable period of time, or whether you're actively going through that growth strategy where you're expanding and growing your team. And if that's the case, who the sort of skills, personality, fit for your business, etc., that you might want to bring in to help support you to deliver effectively to your clients and to grow your business. So, when I step back and look at all of these questions together, what I really see are a few key themes: a need for clarity, a need for consistency, and a need for confidence. Because building a successful consultancy is not just about expertise, it's about how you position yourself, how you communicate your value, and how you build relationships. So, if I had to leave you with 3 key takeaways, they are: be intentional, not just active. Focus on value, not just output. And protect your time and energy, because sustainability matters. Thank you so much for tuning in and for listening. If any of these questions resonated with you, or there are other topics you'd like us to explore, would love to hear from you. You can get in touch with us at hrindependence.co.uk. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your network. Thank you, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of HR Voices. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover or would like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media or email us at hrvoices@hrindependence.co.uk. Tune in next time.